Welcome to LibGuide accessibility training. I'm Melissa Del Castillo. I know all of you. Just wanted to note that for the recording. I'm one of the LibGuide admins, and I'm also a reference librarian at GL. I'm going to share this LibGuide in the chat. I think everyone has seen it. If so, go ahead and click on that link and then scroll down and sign in for this training. And I'm going to navigate. Okay, this is the actual back end. Let me go to the front end. I'm going to move through this training using this LibGuide. So if you want to follow along, the slides are all embedded within this LibGuide. And I'm going to stop along the way to do some demos of the things that I'm doing. That way you can always have reference to actually how to do each of these individual things. So web accessibility has been an ongoing initiative for the university. We're supposed to be web accessible starting with the spring semester 2022. So we have a very small bit of content on these LibGuides compared to the all of the different websites of FIU and all of the Canvas course shells that FIU Online has. But we can do our bit to make our guides more accessible. And I think once you start using these tips, you'll find that they make your your LibGuides better to everyone, not just as an accessibility standard. Okay, let's see. So let's get started. I'm gonna go over the agenda for the training. We're gonna look at the what and why of web accessibility, the WCAG guidelines and guiding principles, a LibGuide accessibility checklist, and that checklist includes pages, boxes, images, embedded media, colors, and then also tools for testing your guides, and a workflow for reporting any accessibility issues found in LibGuides. And I think that's especially important because we're not going to all be at 100% accessible by the end of the year, but there will be a functionality beginning in spring of 2022 that allows anyone to flag a guide or a page that has some accessibility images, and that we could fix it as we go. So we'll end with some questions and a demo of some more of the functionalities, but please feel free to also ask questions throughout and interrupt me if you need to, if I'm going too fast or if you have a question about something. Okay, so let's get started with a poll. Who needs accessible content? Choose all that apply. So you can go ahead and enter in your answers here of all of the choices that you think will need accessible content. So surprised, nobody thinks that kittens need accessible content. I mean, maybe we need accessible content of kittens that I think would be good. So I think everybody has, let me go ahead and share the results.
Oh, kittens didn't get even one vote.
No, those poor kittens are left in the cold. But, you know, the actual answer is all of these except for those poor kittens. You know, everyday users, creating content with accessibility in mind could benefit them in ways such as different learning styles, or actually people with stress issues. If you have a student who is at the very last minute doing their research, and
What
their
stop?
paper is due in the morning, having your content organized and accessible will help those poor students, maybe not the kittens, but those lost little puppies who have decided to do their research at the last minute. Older individuals are also, you know, as we grow old and we need our bifocals and we're not seeing so well, accessible content and properly organized information can help to you know, look at a web page and find the information that they want. Also, those with internet or bandwidth issues, that is another key to creating accessible content. I could tell you one way, and that is if you're giving your images alt image text, for someone whose pages are loading very slowly, they will get that little broken picture icon, but they'll also get the alt image text. So they'll be able to read what that picture is and not have to worry about getting their page loaded to see what the picture is, especially if it's important to the content. So yes, definitely all of the others, which would be, you know, people with disabilities, they would definitely need accessible content. And also for mobile devices, that is very important, the different changing sizes of the screen. If you're following these standards, the mobile accessibility is built in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Let me move this around. My screen is quite tiny. Okay, so what is web accessibility? I mean, I know we know that it does help those individuals with disabilities, but who are they? They are, you know, people with either cognitive disabilities, maybe they're colorblind, maybe they have physical disability. They're using assisted technology to have a screen reader read the content on the web page. Also those who are deaf, having the ability to be guided through a web page and still get all the content that they would if they weren't. And you know, as we are moving to a more and more online world with our classes having course shells, even if they're face to face, and also our library users who may not be able to visit the library in person for whatever reason, making our guides accessible will, you know, get all of everybody on board to be able to use the content. So this page here is going to give you some of the different disabilities, also a little bit of tips about why, you know, there are some that are only able to guide around the screen by using the arrow keys instead of an actual mouse or tracking pad. So we want to make sure that we are accommodating for that. Closed captions for those who have auditory issues, zooming and abilities for text resizing. So these are all some things to think about of the actual why and what happens when we don't have it. Also, here are some of the different assistive technologies, whether they're captions or voice recognition, screen magnifiers. There are a variety of different assistive technologies that we're working towards making our content available to. The why accessibility was a little bit of a tip from what we just used with the poll of, why then, and, although there are very few that are falling on the outliers, it is important to catch everyone. So on to WCAG 2.1. That is actually what people call it. I was going to pronounce it WCAG, but apparently WCAG is the official name of these accessibility standards that we're going to use. So it stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Right now we are on 2.1. If you wanted to go to the guide to read out all of the guidelines, there is a link here for you to be able to access that content right here. These were created by the W3C, yes, the WC3, and they really are trying to keep up with all the technologies and all of the research. So although we are on 2.1, we could be moving to 2.2 with new accessibility standards being added to these. So be on the lookout. If there are some that are applicable to LibGuides, I'll definitely send them out. So I'll let you read these on your own. These are their guiding principles, but basically they want web pages to be understandable, perceivable, operable, and robust for different types of users. And they keep these in mind when they're creating all of their different standards. So let's move to the checklist for LibGuides. Oops. Because although there are a lot of different accessibility standards, we only have a few to worry about as editors of LibGuides, because LibGuides out of the box is accessible without any text being added to it. They have an accessibility statement where they list all of the ways that they've made their content accessible. It's only when we start adding in our individual content to these guides that that accessibility responsibility shifts to the individual editors. So a few the things that we can control, that we have control over, are guide and page names, friendly URLs, descriptions, text formatting, headings, tables, links, images, media, color. And then we have these tools that we can use to help us make sure that we are checking all of these boxes. So what does it mean to say that your pages are accessible? And this is mainly for screen readers. So you're going to want to have a guide title, and you're going to want to have individual page titles that make sense to hierarchy and organization. So here are some examples of what a good title would be. The name of the course, photography subject guide. Those are going to be, what you're going to want to aim for. You're definitely want to give a little bit more descriptive than just saying crafts or art and history. And on the lowest poll, if you were to name it spring semester, you're definitely going to have a million other guides with that same name, and it's going to be very confusing. Mm-hmm. So, trying to create those, descriptive titles that make it clear for someone who's using a screen reader of what your guide is going to include. And that's true for also individual page names. Your guide titles are going to want to be unique. Your pages can be the same on each guide. So I know a lot of us will have finding articles or find articles on each of our guides, and that is great. It means that it's actually much easier for navigation to have that very descriptive name, and it can be the same name on different guides. More reading is okay, but it kind of doesn't exactly explain what is going to happen on the page. And then definitely calling it page one, very undescriptive. not useful at all. Let's see. Oh goodness. Just need a tiny bit bigger of a screen. So the second part to having your pages navigable, and here's the guideline for that, you know, you want to help with the navigation, are having friendly URLs. So as you can see on this page, I do have individual friendly URLs for the site, but also for the pages. So let's show you where that is exactly so that you can see. So here is here is my LibGuide title. And then including a short description is great, so that someone who doesn't have the visual capabilities of seeing your guide will have a hint at what is happening on your guide, what your guide is going to include. So that's these top two. Then as we move down, here is the friendly URL for your individual page. And you notice that I've named this web accessibility with a dash in between, just to be more descriptive. As long as you're following these rules, // dash underscores are all, you know, available to your use. Uppercase and lower uppercase letters are supported, but it can be confusing when you're giving out that URL, whether you have to have the uppercase or not. So those are just some tips that are included there. And then as we move down, we have the page URL. So for each of my individual pages, I do have different URLs. Here's one for images, and that is right here. And this just makes it easier for the screen reader, because the screen reader will read out that URL. And if it has, you know, uppercase, lowercase, numbers and letters and dashes, it could be much more confusing to someone using a screen reader. Having the friendly URLs makes it easier to communicate, you know, the individual page. And this is also where you do your page title. Does anyone have any questions about making your pages and your guide more accessible with friendly URLs, page titles, and page descriptions? Okay, I'll move on. That's pretty easy. So let's move on to the actual content on your page. The rich text boxes is what the main focus is going to be. You know, you're going to want to make your text adaptive. And that means that depending on how someone is interacting with your page, they're going to get the same content. And it's going to make sense and it's understandable. The first way to do that is to take all of the, when you're copying and pasting from either another web page or from a doc, is to take out the formatting from wherever it is that you have found that text, and to have a blank slate of formatting when you use the rich text editor. And it's all done using this little text with the X taking out the formatting. And let me show that to you. So I'm just going to add a box down here. Let's make it a draft box so it won't show if I forget to delete it. I'm going to go ahead and add my rich text. I do have a document over here. So I'm grabbing something from a Word doc and I'm pasting it in here. And you can already see that the text is a little bit bigger, and it doesn't actually look how it would be if I was typing in the rich text box. So the way that you get rid of the text formatting is super easy. You just Control all, and then you click this little box right here. So now all of the formatting from the web or the doc is gone, and you can start fresh. Yes, you can do it with an external text edit program, but this way it's super easy. And you can do it, as you're adding more and more text, you can just Control A and click that text format. Now, even if I were to come here and I were to make this a heading, if I do this, it's still going to keep that heading there because this is formatting from within the box. So it is okay to keep adding and adding, and it will keep whatever formatting you've done from within the box there. Like if I were to make this bold, and now I'm gonna text. Oh, it does take out the bolding. So I think it's with the headings that it counts. So I would make this a heading 4, and now I'd be able to just take out that. And it also just makes the text easier to work with. I don't know if you've had this happen to you, where you grab text from a website and it's in some weird font. There's bolding, there's different colors, all of that. It'll take all of that formatting out. Sorry, just got to make this a little bigger so I can get to my close button. So I'm going to just go ahead and close it. Actually, let's keep it. So that's one way. The next thing that I'm going to recommend for structure are headings. So when you include headings in your text boxes, this makes the organization of the page readable by screen readers. And you'll notice when I did do the heading and I added the heading that it does begin on heading 3. And the reason why LibGuides has done that is because it already has that built-in content to make it accessible. So if for H1, that is the name of your guide. H2 is the name of your box. And then that would mean that the next order would be the heading within your box. That starts with H3. And that's the reason why it only starts at H3 and you cannot do an H1 or H2 within your box. It's because it wants to keep that accessible content functionable. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make your headings bold or in color or highlighted. It just means that you're not using those functions to create a heading. So instead of making something bold and bigger to make it a heading, you're going to want to use that functionality of headings. But once you've made it a heading with the functionality, you can do whatever you want with that. You can make it bigger, you can make it highlighted or bolded, I mean, not bigger, but bolded, or a different color. But yes, you're going to want to use that H3. The other thing that they have suggested for screen readers and the functionality of headings is that your heading should be in the form of a phrase or a question. And that just makes it easier for someone who is using a screen reader to be able to understand that organization of the content. And I'll do an example. So we can go back to our little example here. And maybe instead of geographical area, let's go ahead and get rid of this function, this formatting, normal. we can say something like geographical area. This was for art, so so now we have a little bit of phrase so that we can kind of, like we'll make it more descriptive of what the content is that is going to be following that. We could also say, make it into a question like that. It's just a tip. It's not something you have to do. So the next part are tables. So there are a couple of different ways that you can use tabled information. Some people use it to format the text on the page to line it up in a certain way. And I'm going to kind of discourage you from that, unless you add a row at the top that has what the contents are below. So the way that a screen reader reads a table, the top row is always a label for what content follows. So you can see here is my table of individuals. So, here's name, their favorite food, and maybe their superpower. But everything is going to be this label at the top is going to tell you what is below it, and I give you an example here. So let's create a table. So the other thing that I want to note is you're going to want to use the functionality of LibGuides in their rich text editor rather than copy pasting a table into the content. So let's go back to this. Oh, we haven't even closed it yet, so that's great. So I have some content here. I'm going to want to take out that text. I could also do it by doing all and taking out the text. So here is the table, and you'll already see that it does have a, sorry, let me go back one, that it's going to denote that that top part needs to be labels for the content below. So I can say, let's see, I have 4. Oh no, I want to have, 3 and then 4 columns. And you'll see there's also some things in here that you can do with the content of the table. You can give it a caption. You can say that you want a different type. Do you want it striped, bordered? There are different types of tables here. So if you're worried about losing that ability, there are different ways to create these tables. So then what I would do is I could create my table. You'll see that it also automatically takes the size into consideration when I'm creating that table. So this would be, here's my table for categorizing different artworks. Let's go back here. So those are tables. The next part are links. So there are good ways and bad ways to include links in your rich text editor. If it's not a link on its own where you've actually classified it, you've selected that you're creating a link. This is when you're writing text in a rich text box. So this is not that. Those are already, because LibGuides is accessible, they've already worked in that it makes those accessible if you use that. But this is if you were writing text and you wanted to include a link, The practice is to, instead of saying, click this link, that's giving the title of the link, click this link. It's better for screen readers for it to say within the text that you're highlighting that text and you're making it a link. So the text that is the title of the link is where they would click. This is very confusing because it's telling them that the name of where they're going is click this link, and that's probably not true. You could, highlight this accessibility and make that the link. That might be a little better, but the best practice is to have where they're going as the text that is hyperlinked. So the final thing that I wanted to include kind of goes in with this, where it's lists. So let me just show you an example of a list. So here we have one where we have this geographical area. You're not going to want to do something like this to denote.
Oh.
You're going to want to use the functionality of these little dots. And this is for screen readers to denote that these are listed items within this heading. The other one is steps. So I'm going to create I'm going to do one for when you're using steps. Let's make a little space here. So first I'm going to want to dump this in and then take out the text. So I have here the steps to getting to the art store database. So this is going to be my heading, art store. So I'm going to do this to be, how do I find art store? Let's make that a heading, and then I can bold it if I want. So you'll notice that that it did keep the link functionality, even though I took all the text out. So that's good to know. But I'm going to want to take this link, and instead of having it be a URL, I'm going to want to click on library homepage and link that text. So now instead of writing step 1, I'm going to want to use these functionalities within the rich text editor so that a screen reader can understand what I'm trying to tell them to do. So we'll use these numbers here. So then now this is accessible content. Oops. Did I forget an I here? So anybody have any questions about the actual text, the rich text editor in the box? Lists, links, headings, tables. If you do, you can save them to the end too. So the next thing we're going to talk about are images, and I'm gonna let you know this is the one that I have the most difficulty with because I have so many images in my guides, and I was kind of using them incorrectly, and I was not including the alternative text, which needs to be included for accessibility. And you can go back through your images in your image manager and add that alt text. But I'm going to show you how to do it when you're adding an image. So this is in line with is guideline 1.1, which is the very first guideline, to provide text alternatives for any non-text content. Very important. So, if you are adding an image to your guide, you're going to want to add that alt text, and some best practices are, to be accurate, succinct. Usually no more than a few words are needed. If it is something very complex, then a short sentence or two. Don't be redundant to information that's already included in a caption or a header. And then also one thing that I was making the mistake of is using the phrase image of, graphic of. You do not need to include that in your image text, because when the screen reader reads it, it will say image alt text. So it's already implying that it's an image. If you're the last one, if your image is a link to somewhere else, your alt text should be where that image takes you. So if you click on the image, where are you going? That should be your alt text. And if it's taking you to a website, include that so-and-so website. So I'm going to show you a few examples of images and what the alt text should be. So here I have the first one. These are all Ghostbusters. My alt text would be Ghost Librarian reading as Ghostbusters stare. So that one's pretty straightforward. Here is another one, the second one. So also when you are doing, if you're using an image and that image has text in it, you're going to want to use your alt text to read what that image has to say, because someone who cannot see the image, they will miss the text altogether. So you need to include that text in your image alt text of the image. So this one says, who you're going to call Ghostbusters. So that's what I would include as my alt text. And this last one is actually a link, because you can buy Stay Puft marshmallows. And here they are. So when I wrote the alt image text for this one, I wrote that it's a link to buy Stay Puft marshmallows at Walmart. So that's my alt text for that image. But yes, this is probably the most complex, is getting this alt text image correct, or maybe not correct. Let me take that back. Useful. We want it to be useful, to users who cannot see that image. And I think that if you need some further, yes, B.
Yeah, I was thinking, I have a lot of images that click to something, like the Stay Puft one did. Would it be better just to provide text with that link underneath the image and make the image, blank, like a blind, not lead to anything? Would that be better? Or is that, or we can do it in addition to?
I would say in addition to, I think that if you want to include that's especially useful, like if you're have an image of a book from the library, you're gonna want to make that book clickable, right?
Right.
I know, Doug, you use books also in your Common Read and LibGuide. So yeah, having it, taking away that link, is kind of, making that unuseful to you and also your users. So, you could always have a caption.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so you can have both, but I would stay true to what you want to use your images for. I would never want to say don't include that content we could just make it more accessible.
What if the image has a lot of text on it? Like, what if it was a picture of a poem? You know, we don't want the alt text to be the entire poem, do we?
No. What they suggest for that is, to not use a image that is all, but
Okay.
rather, use your rich text boxes to have
Right.
the content in and overlay a picture or have a picture to the side.
Okay.
Because, if someone was reading through your guide, they wouldn't be able to read the poem. And that's kind of sad that you would be, not including that for, users with disabilities. I mean, you could use the whole text. I might want to check on that. Maybe you could write text from so-and-so poem.
Or just say the title of the poem and the author. And
Possibly. Let me research
we
that
could
on
always look that up.
what they say. And
Okay.
the rules
Just
change all
wondering.
the time, but yeah, that is kind of where it gets into a crux. And yeah, we kind of want to try to do what's best for all of our users. So if you need some other further examples, there are some best practices here that tells exactly, how the screen, the software is going to see the alt text. There's also, I believe, another page on writing alt text with best practices here, and then some examples. So this is where you would put that alt text in when you're adding that picture. That's another reason why we say don't copy paste a picture into your rich text, because you can't really do anything with it. You would have to go back, click the picture link and add it, but to rather add it as an asset with your image gallery. And then that's being said is if you add those into your image gallery, you can write the alt text once, and then whenever you reuse that image, it's already built in. And the final thing that I just forgot, and now I'm reminded, is if your image is solely decorative, you may not need to offer any type of alt text. That becomes iffy. I would go ahead and do it, but I know that if it is, they do say if it is just purely decorative, that it doesn't need to have any alt text. And then here are some examples of images with captions that, here, this is when they're saying that this image is this. Here's an example when the alt text isn't needed. So underneath as a caption, it gives you all the information already. Field photo of, this geographic explorer. So, the ruling is that it does not need text. And then here's another example. This is kind of a long quote, and then the alt text does need to be that whole quote. So if you are having any difficulties when you add an image, please reach out to me. I'll be more than willing to try and find you an answer. And I'll look into that for you, B, about poems and how, we can have a workaround for that, or what's actually called for.
Okay, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions about images? Oh goodness, we're running a little, okay, I'll try to wrap it up. Embedded media. What I'm gonna say is if you're getting embedded media from one of our database subscriptions, they have accessibility built in. Here's an example from Films on Demand. This has closed captions and a transcript. All of our Credo information literacy modules, tutorials have accessibility built in. Chris and I have reached out to all of our vendors and we've received their accessibility statements. It's only when you're finding content that is outside of FIU, which would be something on YouTube or one of the other Vimeo, and then you're gonna wanna check for either a transcript or a closed caption option. Otherwise, you're gonna have a video of someone talking, and if someone is using needs auditive assistance, they're just going to see a mouth moving and not know any of the content. It is if a creator has included the captions or the transcript, that's great. If they haven't, then that's when we get into a little bit of muddy waters where we're going to have content that maybe someone in a class who's supposed to watch the video cannot complete the assignment, unfortunately. And that's when we would get into trouble with, on-campus disability, the Disability Resource Center. But most of the ones that are for educational purposes, they've turned on their closed captions. So just double check to make sure that that is available when you're getting that content, that it's not from within FIU. Next, we have color accessibility. And this is something that we do have baked in with our website and our guides. It's only when you're changing colors in your rich text boxes that it becomes an issue. We do have that overlay of, the blue and the yellow and the white, which makes for the correct color contrast. The other thing that they say is do not use color as the main function of telling, instructions on content. So, most of us can see that answer A is in red, so that was wrong, and answer B is in green, so that would be right. If this is the sole way that you're determining that, that's going to be an accessibility issue. Before, when I did these pages, so I used colors for green, yellow, and red, but I also included what the connotation was, and that's fine. It's just don't use colors as the only way to convey that information, because that's when you get into a tricky spot where you might have individuals with certain color blindness that cannot see the difference between that red and green or whatever color it is that you're using. And that's for color accessibility. Yes, the color coding numbers are ADA compliant, and that's something that we get from the university. So all of our colors are the ones, the HTML codes that are set by the university within LibGuides. So if you're using the different functionality for that. And I'm going to show you a way to check colors. So the next part we're going to look at is tools and testing. So there are 3 tools that we recommend. 2 are extensions. That's the Cite Improve and the Wave. And then the other is a plugin where you can go to this website and you make the plugin a bookmark, and it will have that functionality. So let me go back to my homepage and I'll show you a couple of these. So here is the Totally. I have it as one of my bookmarks. I can click here and I get these cool sunglasses down here, or eyeglasses. And then when I click that, I can ask it to check something. So maybe I wanted to check the headings. Oh, I might have one error, and I could read what that is. Creative Commons, the screenshot. Okay, oh, this is down here in my. So it's letting me know that I'm using non-consecutive headings. So I'm gonna have to go in and change that. But you can do these little quick things on all of your pages depending on, you know, what you want it to check. And then it will let you know these individual ones. So I guess everything is fine. I don't have any red marks. And it will go through. And that is one of the plugins. The other, here are my extensions, and I can do my wave. I guess I do have a contrast error, so I might want to check on that, and that's in these labels. So this is something I might need to talk to. Oh, I know that's green. Oh, I need to look at this box because this box has some contrast errors. Okay, well, new to me. I had just added this in because someone from another university asked to use some of the content and I threw it together really quickly. I guess I didn't pay enough attention when I did it. So I'll definitely be looking at that box because I can already see that there are some contrast errors and alerts on the information in that box. But this, you know, most of the page is, you know, got green lighted and, you know, it looks great. So I know now that I need to go and fix that box.
That's
How
a
often
box that a
do
lot
we
of,
have to check? Oh, sorry.
no, I was gonna say it's a box that a lot of people could use. So if you do a good job of it, you can share.
No worries. Yeah, I was really off the cuff. I got an email that somebody wanted to use the guide and I threw it together quickly. And I guess I should have paid more attention. But now I'll go back and I'll make it correct and then I'll add it to the blueprint guide and you can just, you know, use these boxes once I've made it accessible. Okay, let me go back. I'm gonna want to turn this one off. The other one is the site improve. Oh goodness, I've actually clicked the wrong button. Okay. So yes, there are those 3 tools to use. And they're in the tools and testing. Here are the links for them. 2 of them are extensions and 1 is a plugin. The last thing I'm going to go over very quickly is something that we're going to institute. In spring, we're going to have a button at the bottom of all LibGuides that say, you know, are there any accessibility issues, or is something that they report an accessibility issue. Once that's reported, we'll unpublish the guide, let the editor know. You have a 7-day business day workaround to remedy the issue. Then you can submit it for review and then we can publish it. So this will just be a case-by-case basis of, you know, when someone comes in contact with your page and they can't do something that they need to get done. Are we hiring someone to fix all these? Nope, that's us on the editors. Chris will be fixing any issues that are on any of the actual, you know, website pages. But if you have issues within your own guide, I'm not sure if a lot of people will have unpublished pages. But this will be someone who is using a screen reader would have to come in contact with your page and then note that there's an accessibility issue. We're not running a wave tool on the whole set of LibGuides and unpublishing. This would just be if there's a student who needs content on your page and can't use your page, and then they report the issue. But eventually we want to have all of our guides within compliance. I know that's going to be some work involved, especially some of us who use a lot of images or have a lot of content within the rich text boxes. But yeah, as you can see, you have to be very careful when you're creating something that it is within compliance of all of these different headings and alt text, linking, color contrast, standards that we want to uphold. So does anybody have any final questions or anything that they want me to maybe demo so that they can see how something's done, or I know I ran right up to the 3 p.m. Also on the last page, there is another chance to sign in for the training if you haven't been able to do that already. Yes, I will be sending the recording and then including it in on this as a page in this guide. Yeah, we do have a lot of content to update. So hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get started on this semester and then, you know, work on it as we go. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.